What's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hey everybody, good evening. How are you all? Welcome to Kristen Behind the Crime Door. I am Kristen, and it's good to see all of you. Hey Rob Lee, how are you? Hey John, good to see you. Good to see you. Hey Honeybee, how are you? Hey Lynn, good to see you. Hi Daisy, how are you? Hey Tech Death, how are you doing? Always good to see you. Hi Eileen, how are you? Good to have you with me. Hey Carla Ann, welcome, welcome. Hey Kanga Blue. Hi Cesavec, how are you? Hello Melissa. Hey Pigeon Mac, how are you? Hey, Kimberly Wilson. Good to see you. Very good to see you. Hey, Shelly Cinderella. How are you? It's so good to have you here, my dear. Thanks, guys. Some interesting stuff going on, as always, in the true crime world. Interesting interview. We're going to watch the segment that Doug Carter did on the Hammer and Nigel podcast on 93.1 FM WIBC out of Indianapolis. It's a huge podcast. They have a huge following. Hey, Nomad77, good to see you. Hi, Judy. How are you? Oh, good, Shelly. I'm so glad to hear that you are. That's good news all the way around. So, I had a quite busy week. I had my grandson was ill this week with a really nasty cold, so I had him off and on this week. He missed school. So he kept me quite busy. Hey, Salty Beach. I always love having him. He's a loads of fun normally, but this time he wasn't feeling well, so we kind of just hung out and watched his new favorite movie, Nightmare Before Christmas, which also happens to be one of my all-time favorite movies, probably because I was born on Halloween. And if you didn't know that it was one of my favorite movies, you'll know now. So this is my Jack Skellington Starbucks cup. Hey, Olivia, how are you? Hi, little daisies. Good to see you. Hey, country girl. So tonight we're going to talk about we're going to listen to Doug and his interview. And then hey, Heather, how are you? Thank you. We're going to listen to Doug's interview, and then we're going to talk about it. And we're going to also talk. Hey, Danger Dave, welcome. Yeah, I knew he was live, and I figured that people would be coming in. So I was kind of just waiting around for everybody to come in from Steve's live. But I'm glad you guys are all here. Hi, Thistle Do Nicely. How are you? No problem, you guys. No problem at all. Steve is worth being there for. So it's always good. I have no problem with anybody missing me for Steve. His show is better than mine. Hey, Avondale Mama. How are you? So I thought it was quite interesting. So I thought that that's something that we should talk about tonight. Hey, Digital. Melissa, thank you. Thank you. I love Steve. I have so much respect for him. He is the real deal. He is a great person. I think he's a great investigator. He gives all the people who throw shade at the police, I think we can look at him and know that not everybody falls into that category. So I like seeing our cases from a different perspective. Oh, Dave, you are so sweet. I just love you. I hope you're doing well, and that you're hanging in there. You've had a lot going on this month. I also wanted to tell everybody, please hold Frank Meister in your prayers. He lost his mother, and he is currently working on her funeral. And we all know that that is a terrible thing to have to deal with, and especially right at the holidays. I don't wish it on anyone anytime, but my heartfelt prayers are with him. And for all of you that watch Marv and Frank Meister, just make sure that you hold him in your thoughts. Hey, Deb, how are you? So good to see you. Hey, Teresa, good to see you. Thank you for coming in. We're going to talk about that, but I'm going to do some clean housekeeping stuff. We're going to just touch on a couple of cases. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on. I think you guys probably heard the news that the Gabby Petito case finished in civil court, and they were awarded $3 million from the Brian Laundrie estate that they'll probably never see, because I doubt very seriously he had $3 million. But whatever they're able to get will definitely help the foundation that they're trying to put together in Gabby's name. So I did want to say that, and that I thought that was, I think it was good for the family to have that in court, that validation that he was responsible for her death. And I definitely think that was probably semi-comforting to them. Oh, Dave, please tell me you're not a Packers fan. Oh, it's going to break my heart. So, excuse me. My cough actually sounds much worse than it is. I've had a lot of drainage this week. The weather change. We were up in the 70s, then it went clear down into the low 30s. We've had snow this week. It's just been crazy. I'm not diehard for a football well, I shouldn't say that. I grew up loving football, and then I got away from it for a while. And then I started rewatching it when my grandsons really started getting into the sport and loving it. They never played it, but they loved it. So I started watching again. But yes, I am a Chicago Bears fan. So go ahead. You guys make fun of me all you want to. But I will always be a diehard Bears fan. And people can choose to hate. I love the history of the Bears. I watched when Gale Sayers was playing. There's just nothing like that as far as I'm concerned. And you just can't say enough about Sweetness. I mean, to watch him play and everything that he did on the field, they had some really, really amazing players. So yeah, I'm a Bears fan. And it's funny because Tech Death and we banter back and forth all the time. And he's a Browns fan. So we talk a little bit about football, but oh yeah, Daisy, the Super Bowl shuffle. Are you kidding? I mean, Jim McMahon had it going on that year. They were all great. I was just saying, they've got a really good quarterback right now in Fields, Justin Fields. But the sad thing is their defense sucks, which is so unusual for the Bears, because the Bears have always been known for their defense. And, they were called the monsters of the Midway forever. They couldn't scare a mouse in a paper bag. I'm so serious. They couldn't. They have been losing games like crazy in the last 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. And yeah, it's kind of sad. So, hey, Jennifer, good to see you. But anyway, so I'm more of a Premier League soccer fan. Actually, I watch more real football, which is the Premier League soccer. So huge fan there. And also, I'm an NCAA basketball fan, like diehard basketball fan. So that's where you'll find me. So I'm the University of Arizona girl. So there you go. CJK, you better be on the lookout. They're being investigated in a very similar way that Arizona was, which led to them losing their coach. So I would think that you guys might be a little tad worried about what's going on there in Kansas. So anyway, thank you, Dave. You're so sweet. So, oh, Digital, you just broke my heart. But, yeah, Tech Death, there you go. All right, guys, let's get into it. Jennifer was our Rams cheerleader. So she was a St. Louis Rams when the Rams were here in St. Louis. She was a cheerleader for them. So if you go onto my website, you'll see a picture of her dressed in her uniform. She's beautiful. So I know she loves football. Let's see. Oops. No, she wasn't a cheerleader for Dallas. You're fine, Digital. It's okay. You don't have to defend it. So, nice talking about it, you guys. All right. So we're going to talk today about a couple of different cases that we've been covering first before I get into Delphi. And I talked to you guys the other night about what's been going on at the University of Idaho and the 4 students that were killed there over the weekend. And something has come out that's really kind of interesting that I thought we should at least touch on. So they had a press conference on the murder of the students, and they basically said that the killer or killers are unknown and on the loose. Chief was changing the rhetoric from the public not being in danger to he can't promise the public isn't in danger, though he doesn't believe he, she, or they will attack anyone else. Why they believe that, obviously they know more than we do, but that's just an odd thing to say. And as I brought that up when we talked about it the other night, that's exactly what we were told in Delphi, if you remember, is that the public wasn't in danger. They felt that it was targeted. So they all had something. They all have something that they know about the crime scene or whatever that led them all to feel this way. 2 roommates were home when this crime happened at 1:45 a.m. on Sunday morning. And neither of those people were hurt. and they were both there when the police showed up after the call at noon. So the 4 other people were murdered in the apartment, and 2 roommates were not. There were no forced entry, none. The door was still open when the police showed up. Ethan and Zaina went to a party on campus while Madison and Kaylee had gone downtown to a bar. And a video did come out of the girls arriving at a bar. They already seemed to be extremely intoxicated when they were on the street at a streetcar vendor, food vendor. And there appears to be 3 men watching them. One in particular looked really stalkish. The way he was, I don't know if he was an Uber driver or who he was, but he really looks like he showed up about the same time that they did. The police chief admitted that he waited too long to share this information with the worried public, and he should have held a press conference at least a day or more ago. Again, if anyone knows anything that can help, please call 208-883-7180 and report whatever it is that you know. They still have no suspects that they've named in this case. So very tragic. But I do feel that it's just a little bit odd that 2 people were in that apartment and were not harmed. That definitely tells you that somebody was targeted. How do you go in there and leave 2 people alive and kill everyone else? So it's really weird. It almost makes you think that they all either showed up together, or maybe the girls came back to the apartment and the other 2 were already there from their date downtown where they had gone, and maybe they had brought someone or someones back with them, and then something went bad. It's just really, really weird to me. Perhaps whatever went down in the downstairs portion of the apartment, they didn't even realize that there were other people upstairs. So, anyway, so that case has just got me kind of really wondering what's going on. So we are going to watch that one pretty closely to see what happens in this investigation, because right now they don't have any suspects. Hey, Joe Johnson, welcome, my dear. How are you? Good to see you. I think that's because they weren't found until noon. Olivia, I think what happened was the students, the two roommates were probably sleeping, and they didn't call until they got up and found them. What I think is interesting is they described the 911 call as an unresponsive person. They reported an unresponsive person when there were 4 of them. So yeah, I don't know. It's just really, really weird. Welcome to everyone who's just coming in or getting here from Steve's live stream. Thank you so much for being here. And Marcel, we'll get into the Delphi case in a little bit. I'm not talking about it right now. So let's see. I have not heard of that, Nomad. That is sad. What is happening in this country, in this world? It's just terrifying. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, SP-74. I really was. That reminded me so much of a Ted Bundy move. It was just weird. Yeah, I'm just assuming. I don't know what to think, Lisa. I really don't. I'm really concerned about the men that were behind the girls, because they did seem to be, the one in particular just seemed to be hanging around them, and the girls didn't seem to be at all interested. So I just don't really know what to think about that. I hope that they pay attention, obviously, to that video, and they find the people in the video and talk to them. So, anyway, the other case that we're following is, of course, Michael Vaughn. They are still working on the home's backyard. They're still in there as we speak. They're going through all the dirt, and they're trying to be meticulous so they don't miss anything. They still believe that his remains will be found there. And I feel so bad for his family. I know that that's not how they thought this case would end up. I think they really believed. Okay. Hold on a second, guys. You don't like it when people don't listen. Cricket that happened in Idaho at the University of Idaho over the weekend. So yeah, I'm just, people come in here and they want to take over the show and the chat on their terms, and I don't allow that here. When I'm discussing other cases, we're not talking about Delphi. So it's just how my show works. So that's what's going on with the Michael Vaughn case. And again, I feel really sad for his parents, which, what's happening there. But I was hoping for a different outcome right along with them. So I wanted to let you guys know, I did hear of a case that happened. Oh, this is so sad. Parents of 7-year-old Spring boy found dead in the washing machine have been arrested. Troy Kaler, 7, was found dead in a washing machine in his Spring home after his adoptive parents reported him missing earlier that morning. This happened in Spring, Texas. The adoptive parents of the 7-year-old boy who was found dead in a washing machine in their Spring home have been arrested, according to the Harris County Sheriff. Jermaine Thomas, 42, and Tiffany Thomas, 35, were arrested after the Harris County Institute of Forensic Sciences ruled that the 7-year-old Troy Kaler's death was indeed a homicide. Excuse me. Jermaine Thomas has been charged with capital murder, and Tiffany Thomas has been charged with injury to a child by omission, according to the sheriff. Gonzalez said an autopsy revealed, and you guys, this is very triggering, so I'm going to warn you. This is so triggering. Gonzalez said an autopsy revealed that Kaler suffered new and old injuries before his body was found in the washing machine. And Ed Gonzalez reported first on the 15th. Early this morning, PCT4 deputies reported to a call for service at a residence located at the 4400 block of Rosegate Drive, reference to a missing seven-year-old child. Initial units arrived on scene and were unable to locate the child. Later, the child was located in a washing machine in the residence. He later updated with the arrest. After the extensive investigation, his adoptive parents, were arrested on capital. Jermaine, the man in the in the case, has been charged with capital murder, and Tiffany with injury to a child by omission. And on July 28th, he was reported missing from his home before he was later found dead at the same home. Troy was found in a top-load machine in the garage. Jermaine Thomas said he could not find the 7-year-old after returning home just before midnight the night before. That's when he said he noticed his front door was unlocked. It's just that I came home. I was fixing to walk in the door, like right now. I don't have my keys, but I put my keys to the door handle, and then it just opened, he said. Anything else after that, I don't know. The adoptive parents were detained and questioned on the day his body was found, but they were later released. Investigators said the couple called 911 in the early morning hours of July 28th to report Troy missing. Just a few hours later, Precinct 4 deputies found his fully clothed but lifeless body inside the washing machine. In July, a spokesperson with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services said that CPS does have history with the family. He has years and years of abuse. This little boy was abused before he was adopted, and it seems like he has new injuries and showed abuse after the adoption. And they killed him, is what they are claiming. So we are going to keep an eye on what happens to these parents. I don't understand, and I never will understand, how people can adopt children and turn around and abuse them. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It never will make sense to me why people would do such a thing. It's just crazy. No, they put him in the washer to hide his body, Cricket. It was in Spring, Texas. It happened in Spring, Texas. And just a cute and adorable little boy. I feel so bad for what this child must have had to have gone through before he ended up in that washing machine. And at the hands of someone who had this child and adopted him and made him believe that he was going to be in a safe and loving environment. It's just, it's just awful. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and we are going to watch the interview with Doug Carter on the Hammer and Nigel podcast. And that's a radio podcast if anyone's interested. I will have it linked in the description box below at the bottom of this video. It's very telling, so everybody, if you haven't heard this, you might want to listen. Give it a listen. Making sure all the volumes are turned up, and here we go.
The level on the go and on WIBC.com.
Hammer and Nigel. You believe these characters are weirdos? On 93 WIBC. So let's rock!
My name is Nigel. Jason Hammer is here. Also special in-studio guest, Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter joining us back live in studio. Good to have you live in studio, Doug. Good to see you again. You look great. Pull that microphone right up.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, one of the things a few weeks ago after you were at the podium announcing that you'd made an arrest for Abby and Libby, I just felt like a sense of relief, because this was one huge step towards finally getting some justice for Abby and Libby. I know you were quite emotional at that podium, at that press conference a few weeks ago. Did you feel a sense of relief? I mean, I know you're working with several different agencies, but you're kind of the face. You've been kind of the spokesperson for the investigation.
You know, I couldn't wait for that day. And then when I finally got there, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to think or how I was going to feel. But the most important thing to me was to see how that community might begin, but most importantly of all, as a family. And it was a very strange, emotional day.
It was an intense press conference too, because there were so many questions you couldn't answer, and the prosecutor couldn't answer. I could feel some frustration on the part of reporters in that room, because I know this investigation is still ongoing.
I don't blame them a bit for being frustrated. I don't blame them a bit. But we have to remember that now that we're where we are, it's not a community interest story. It's very factual now, and we have to be very careful. I think that's what everybody expects. So on one hand, we say to the media,
I absolutely love that, you guys. This is not a community interest story. Perfectly said by Doug Carter.
Thank you, and I really do mean that, for keeping this front and center, not just nationally, but even globally. But then the other side is we have questions, we can't answer them. So I understand that frustration. I really, truly do.
And I know you can't answer every question that we have here, but we're going to fire away anyway. Is the guy in custody, Richard Allen, is he the only person being looked at in this investigation?
Right now, he's the one that's been that's now facing murder charges. So again, we are not going to stop looking at other people until this is completely done and we have nothing left to do. So 70,000 plus tips, hundreds have come in since 2 weeks ago, week ago Monday, I guess, and we'll continue to receive those tips and look into them as you would expect.
If this affidavit is released and there's a hearing coming up, I believe on the 22nd, that's got some information that led to the arrest of Richard Allen, the suspect, if that is allowed to be given to the public, is that going to compromise the investigation in any way?
No, I don't think at this point it will. And I think it'll answer a lot of the questions that people have. And
will we find out how we got to this point with that information?
Yeah, it'll be much clearer.
What could happen? Can you give us a hypothetical of what could happen if investigators say too much too soon? If somebody, and it doesn't have to be with this case in particular, just a hypothetical of a murder case, and somebody on the team or in the prosecutor's office says something that they shouldn't have. What's the domino effect that could happen potentially if you reveal too much information in a case like this?
Yeah, it's a great question, and the answer is there are things that we know that only the killer would know, and I'm speaking generally. And it's an investigative strategy, obviously, that if we know what the killer knows and nobody else does, that when we do talk to the killer, we'll have a clear idea of what occurred, and that's a very similar strategy that we've used here.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there, you guys, because for the last 5.5 years, we have heard nothing but people complain because they didn't know this information. It wasn't released about this information. Why don't we know more about the crime scene? Why don't we know more about this? We have to remember just what he said. There are certain things in that crime scene and that case, well, all of it really, that only they know, and the person or persons that were there that day and committed those crimes. If that information gets out, then it's no longer just the criminals that know the information. And it can ruin what they're trying to do. They don't want to have people to come in and say that they were there that day and know and be able to use that information to prove that they were there. They want to catch who is truly responsible for the crime. We have people in this crazy world who will admit to crimes they did not commit. It happens all the time. And so they're trying to protect from that, but they're also trying to protect from the killer knowing what they know about the crime scene or him or whomever. And so that when they get these people in and they're interrogating them, if they slip up and say something that only the killer would know, and law enforcement already knows that information, boom, they've got you. So that's kind of how he's explaining it. And everybody just needs to stop. And especially now that we do have an arrest, people have to trust the process.
One of the things that I've heard is, why not release the cause of death? Not because people are morbidly curious, but if they knew they were looking for somebody that was either a stab or a gunshot, maybe they know somebody that sold the gun, sold the knife. Maybe they could find the weapon somewhere. What's the rationale for not releasing the official cause of death?
Because the individuals that did it, only they know what they did.
But do you think that's, and I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, has that slowed down the investigation? Because I think the public, with all of their tips, has been a big help in this. Wouldn't it make sense to have the public looking for the possible weapon?
I don't think at this point it would. Functionally, I understand the question, Hammer. I really do understand it. And we're going to look back on this and probably realize, dang, I wish we'd have done A, B, and C rather than D and E.
And I think that is telling of Doug Carter. Doug Carter is a man of integrity. We can say, and you can say whatever you want to about him, but I'm always going to side on the side of his integrity, his compassion. I believe it's real. I do not believe that this man is not emotionally invested in this case, because I do believe that he is. And, you know, he is right there to say, and he will go on to say that if we screwed up or we did something wrong, I'm sure it's going to come out. He's sure that at some point when this case is analyzed, after it's all done and said and over, people are going to look at it and say, well, why didn't they do A, B, and C instead of D, E, and F? And like I said, it is easy to be an armchair quarterback on Monday morning. And I mean, it is so easy to see that he really means what he says. He's willing to take and shoulder the responsibility if there are errors that may have been made. And we also know in our hearts, if we stop and think about it, these men and women that do these jobs are human beings, just like you and me. They go to work every day. Yeah, they put on a uniform and they carry a weapon. But my God, come on, you guys. How many of you go to work every day and don't make a mistake? That's where I'm getting at with this. And yeah, we hold them to higher values because of their authority and the ability that they have to commit something horrendous against someone who may be innocent. We've seen that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about an investigation, a death investigation that's a homicide of 2 teenage girls, children. These men and women that worked this case wanted this case to be solved. Did they do everything right? Hell no, they didn't. But you know what? 5.5 years later, they've got an arrest and they feel doggone confident that they got their guy. Now, I didn't know until he said 70,000 tips. The last I heard, it was 50,000. So, man, that's a lot of information that you have to go through and decide what is relevant, what isn't. You know, it's crazy to me. It's just crazy that we have all of this information and everybody's so critical of why didn't they know this and why, you know. I'm just, like I said, I just don't understand. But man, I am so glad that they finally did get new eyes to look at this case. And now here we are.
Right. But now's not the time for us to change that strategy and talk about everything that we know.
What did you think when, like, a lot of news has happened with the story since you made the announcement of the arrest? Richard Allen has been moved to a state facility. The Carroll County judge has recused himself. Did that concern you at all, that the judge in this case, after 5 years of, you know, having been being prepared for this day, all of a sudden is now saying, well, we don't have enough resources to facilitate this. I'm stepping down and we're going to move it somewhere else.
You know,
Did that concern you?
Yeah, it did. It doesn't anymore. It was, again, that day was very unusual for all of us, the family, the community, the country, the world, period. It was very unusual. And then the reality struck of where we were. And I think that struck the judge at the same time. And I appreciate him having the ability and the courage to step up and step out and say, you know what, this is too big for me. I didn't know what was going to happen, but here's what's currently happening. Here's the influx. And with this small number of people in a very rural county, it's not something that we can perpetuate and manage.
Another piece of information that came out since the arrest, and this was just the last couple of days, is that maybe this guy, Richard Allen, has been on the radar for a long time. Did he speak to investigators? Did he speak to police in the early stages of this investigation?
That'll all come out in due time. I'm not going to talk about Richard Allen today.
Yeah, that Wish. There was a story on Wish TV, our news gathering partners, about some police sources and some information. Did you see that yesterday?
I did.
You know, the search of the Wabash River. They're saying a source is linked to the Delphi investigation. Like Hammer said about you know, Richard Allen, how long he's been on the radar. When you see a story like this, is it? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it frustrating, especially when you see a police source confirmed this? That's what they're saying.
That's a link from within, right?
Is that?
It is frustrating. I will say yes. It is absolutely frustrating because we can't talk about what we think. And I've said this many times before. You should expect us to only talk about what we know, and that even changes more so. Once there's a probable cause affidavit signed by a judge for the arrest of an individual, not just Richard Allen, but in any criminal case, especially a complex criminal case. This case is unlike any that I've seen in almost a 40-year career. So there are so many different tentacles to this. It's very complex, and you know, shame on us for saying something that might jeopardize that. So whoever this quote source is, I doubt very seriously that individual is part of the core team.
Okay. That's a lot that's been said right there. So we're going to break some of this down because this goes back to what I have been saying now for months about the murder sheet and their quote unquote law enforcement source. And he basically speaks to it right here. Law enforcement was not giving them help. this law enforcement investigation was not helping them. And he doesn't believe for 1 minute that the person who may be leaking this information is close or inside the investigation. They may see things. It'll be really interesting to find out who these people are, if we ever do, that was supposedly leaking some of this information. And you heard him talk about how complex this case is and how it has many tentacles, which leads me to believe that there's many parts to it. An investigation we've talked about before is fluid. It's constantly moving and it's constantly changing. So when they're getting these tips in, as they're getting tips in, they're working them. And it leads them, I mean, stop and think about the big picture and the one wall of a room where they've got all the pictures of the people that they're learning about, and they're putting pegs in the wall, and they're putting this, and they're using their string, and they're attaching them, you know, where does this go and how does this relate? And they're doing all of this. And as they do that, then they're eliminating people, and they're eliminating this, and they're eliminating that. And that's basically how this investigation works. And I just think, to me, he did not say that. That is not what he said. He told them, he thanked them for keeping their word, is exactly what he said. So it didn't say anything about, he didn't say anything about them talking to them about what they would release before they ran it, whatever that may mean. That is not what he said. He just said, thank you for keeping your word, whatever that meant to them. Between him and them, they know what that means. The murder sheet burned sources over the summer. The murder sheet, in my opinion, has no credibility anymore. None. They are trying to build a podcast, and they were very successful in doing so. Let's see. They'll be the first ones, when this is all over, said and done, that works on a documentary. You mark my words. Or write a book. They'll get a book deal. You can't even go anywhere nationally on the news source to listen to anyone talk about this case now without them referencing the murder sheet as they're experts on this case. They're not experts in anything. They've covered this case for less than a year. They're not experts on this case. There are people that have been covering this case ever since day one. Ugh, makes me mad when people defend them. Anyway, let's finish listening to what Doug has to say.
The other name that's involved in this whole story is Kline. Now, he has not been charged with anything in regards to the murders of these beautiful young ladies in Delphi, but we know that he's locked up for child porn. We know that he had some sort of communication with one of the ladies the day before they passed away. Has he been speaking to police? Has he been given some sort of plea deal to help police?
We'll continue to work on Kline and whatever his connectivity might be to Abby and Libby and almost 2,100 days ago.
All right. So he says right there that they're going to continue to work on KAK and Kline. They've been working on KAK and Kline for 2 years, if not longer. But we know for sure since they arrested him on CSAM. And Kagan's told him a lot, supposedly. Supposedly, it's because of Kagan that they ended up in the Wabash River for 5 weeks, you guys. 5 weeks they spent in that river. What did Kagan tell them that was so explosive that they knew they had a habitual liar on their hands, that they believed him? If that is true, again, I think Junior Johnson said it earlier, if the source is believable. You know, we have to go back to, we don't know where this information is coming from, and we don't know who or what has been said. So all my feeling is, I'm going back to what I said before, you guys. They still don't have enough to put the Klines at the bridge, in the woods, killing the girls. If they did, they would have arrested them long before now. They've been working for 2 years. They know how much has gone on with the CSAM case and all that stuff. And they also have known that there was someone interacting with Libby as Anthony Schatz. Kagan admitted that it was him and that he got bored with her. That was in that interview that Vito did back when he was arrested. Again, everyone needs to remember that affidavit of the investigators talking to Kagan Kline happened 2 years ago. It didn't happen last year when in December, when we learned about Anthony Schatz. That stuff all came out. That interview with Kagan was 2 years ago. I believe what happened is exactly in my head as it is right now, that they had an investigatory team of new eyes, probably in June, get together and start going over the case file, looking at all of those tips, all of those interviews. And while they were doing that, that's when someone said, well, what about this guy? This guy, Richard Allen. He came in and talked back here on this date to this person and said he was there that day. And he was on the bridge that day. And he told them that. And he told them that early on. And I know that it's hard for us to wrap our heads around why a murderer would go interject himself and tell them, because you guys, he saw the picture of himself. They released it. Him on the bridge. He had to go tell them why he was there. He had to, but they didn't put 2 and 2 together because they didn't see him as the guy on the bridge. For whatever reason, they didn't see him as that guy on the bridge. He just told him he was there that day and that he happened to be on the bridge and didn't see anything or hear anything. That's what we've been told by the source. And if that proves to be true, man, you know, why? I mean, do you not think that people are kicking themselves? I think about Tobe Lesenby and all of this, and he has taken, believe me, I am not a fan. I have been critical of him in so many different aspects of this case. But one of the things I'll say about Tobe is I do believe that he is compassionate, and I do believe he cares about what happened to Abby and Libby. I think what he saw that day in the woods scared him, scarred him, and and forever changed him. And I do believe that when he said that he had heard that voice before, he had, when he picked up his medicine at CVS. And everybody's like, well, how the heck could he not how could he have not recognized him then? Come on, you guys. You go pick your medicine up at the pharmacy every single day. That doesn't mean you're going to, or not every day, but you know what I mean? That doesn't mean you're going to recognize their voice. So I just think it's funny how critical people are. So critical. Digital, I saw your question. We don't know when he talked to the conservation officer. They just said in the early days. They didn't say when. And the photograph was put out on the 17th. February the 17th. So I'm just saying, I believe that he saw, I don't know when he talked to the conservation officer, but I don't think it was the same day. It wasn't the video. There wasn't the video. We're not talking about the video. I'm talking about the still image that was released of the man on the bridge that they wanted to talk to. And at the point when they released the still image of the bridge, of the guy on the bridge, all they told us was that this was a person that they were anxious to speak to because he was there that day. And it wasn't until 2 days later that they came out and said the man on the bridge is the person that they believe is responsible for the murders of Abby and Libby. And that's how it went down, you guys. And so my feeling is, if this is true and Richard Allen did go to them early on, he had to, when he saw the picture of himself, he got scared and was like, crap, I'm going to have to tell them why I was there, because he's probably thinking they're going to know it's me once they see it. You get me where I'm coming from here? That's what he was thinking, but law enforcement didn't put that 2 and 2 together. In my opinion, they saw this guy who works at CVS, who's a family man. He's lived in Delphi since 2006. He's never had any problems with the law, except for driving, tickets. And they didn't see him as a threat. I just I don't believe there's any conspiracy. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I absolutely am not. And I don't believe that there's any conspiracy in this case. I don't. But I do believe that there could be things that we don't know about. And I'm absolutely positive that I'm not 100% right. So, and I don't care, because like I said before, I've told you guys this for months and months. I'll continue to say it. I don't have to be right. That's not what this is about. I'm not going to die on some hill for a POI. I'm not going to die on some hill for a theory that I have that nobody else has or everybody else has. I'm not going to do that. I want to follow the investigation. And right now, the investigation tells me that that man sitting right there that we're listening to believes that Richard Allen murdered Abby and Libby. Is there anybody else involved? We don't know. He said they don't know. They're going to continue to go through all the tips and everything until there's nothing left to do. If he just came on their radar in the summer after this investigation was looked at by the group of investigators, then there's a lot of information that they need to gather on Richard Allen. And they're going to be doing that. They're going to be looking at other murders. They're going to be looking at other locations where he lived. And see if there's anything that sticks out to them. They're going to be talking to his relatives, to his friends, to his classmates. I believe he had it. I don't believe that it was unfounded. I believe that they believed he was out there, but I don't believe they saw him. They only saw him through the eyes as a witness. They never considered him being a perpetrator, because I don't think they looked at him closely enough. I think he blends in as a normal guy, and you're not going to see it right off the bat. And that's what I think happened. So I just think that we're going to have to wait and see. Doug Carter is very specific in this interview by telling us that he believes that the probable cause document will be released, and that it should be, and that it will tell us a lot of what we want to know. He said it'll get us close to what we're looking to know. And I just think we have to wait. That's only Tuesday. It's not that far. Let's finish up and listen to what else he has to say.
We will continue to work towards that.
It's hard to believe it's been that long.
2,086 days last Monday.
Wow. Should we take a break? Can you stick around for a second segment?
Sure. You bet.
Should we get a traffic break here?
Yes.
All right, let's.
Matt Mayer standing by in the WIBC Traffic Center. Matt, what's going on?
Crash up in Lebanon.
Hang on a second. I'm going to try to move past this. So we don't have to listen to all their advertisements.
The Moss Roofing team will come up with a custom winterizing plan for you. Visit mossroofing.com to get your winter prep started today.
Tickets on sale now for Christmas Nights of Lights at the Indiana State Fairground. Purchase online early to reserve your time slot. Their new colorful field of lights is a must-see. Christmas Nights of Lights is open nightly, including all holidays, November 11th through January 1st. Purchase tickets at ChristmasNightsOfLights.com.
You're listening to the Hammer and Nigel Show on 93 WIBC.
It's the Hammer and Nigel Show. I'm Jason Hammer. Big Nige is here.
Hello.
Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter is here. One more thing on the Delphi story before we move on to something else. I have been pretty critical of some of these press conferences. You touched on it earlier. You understand why the press would be a little upset. My beef with a lot of these early on was that it felt like these things were happening just for the sake of happening. There was no new information. And the reason I felt that way, I was trying to think, if I was the parent of one of these young ladies, I feel like I would be getting my hopes up every time one of these press conferences would happen, but then they would happen and there's no new information. And then it would feel like sometimes there'd be some theatrics, like some cliches being thrown out there, which again, felt like it was getting the hopes up of these families. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I can see your perspective, but that wasn't the case. There was one press conference I can remember specifically that Mike and Becky were not aware of. And I regret that. I take responsibility here. And if there's going to be criticism, I want to come to me. But over time, it was important that we kept talking about this.
Right.
And Hammer, had we not done that, we wouldn't have been able to say to the media, thank you for keeping it front and center. So
I don't think it was asking for tips,
information. Yeah. Everybody expects everything to be solved through science today, and that's just always not the case. It's a combination of all of it. So the human impact has been really, really fascinating to watch. And again, we didn't have a playbook here, and we did the very best we could for over 5.5 years.
And I absolutely want to give him kudos again. My hat's off to him and to his team. They didn't have a playbook. This is farm country USA, out in the middle of basically nowhere. Town of less than 3,000 people, a county of just under 20,000. And you have got a double homicide of 2 little girls. This is something they don't see. Not only do you have a double homicide of 2 little girls, but you have a homicide of 4 little girls just 2 months before, 2.5 months before. So they have got 6 very close together murders of children in their county in less than 3 months. These guys were absolutely overwhelmed with what was going on. Now, I am very critical of them for their handling of the Flora case. And, you know, I'll get into that on my Flora videos, but I'm just saying that it's very, I just think it's very unfair of everybody to think that just, and he said that, and I don't know if it's right now or if we missed it, but he did say in his interview that everybody just thinks that DNA and science is going to solve cases. And that's not always true. Sometimes it is the old-fashioned detective work that solves these cases, and probably more often than not. Well, I don't know where you guys, if you guys are brand new or not, but Flora, Indiana, which is less than 8 miles from Delphi, the Flora girls were killed in an arson fire, were murdered in an arson fire in November. We're getting ready to have the 6th anniversary of the girls' death when they were lost in the fire. So if you want to know about that, you guys need to look up Flora, Indiana fire, and you'll figure out all that's going on with Flora. But thanks, Pigeon Mac, for remembering Kiana, Kiara, Carriel, and Kyani. So, yes, the house fire was arson. That case is still not solved. And those little girls were Black. And I believe race is the reason that the case has not got the same coverage as Delphi.
And again, we look back on some of the events and strategies. I'll look forward to debating those as time goes.
What do you think the biggest mistake has been? Can you talk about that? Like, I know there's the ongoing investigation, but a couple times today you've said, you know, we're going to learn from this. We've made mistakes. Give me an example.
Was the sketch, the 2 sketches?
No, I don't think that was a mistake at all. That was a frankly, a pretty effective strategy that kept information coming our way.
Because the second one looked nothing like this guy that's into custody. The first one, you could put a side-by-side up with Richard Allen and you could say, I see that. The second one looked nothing like that guy.
And that's something.
But was that the right thing to put that out? Because clearly it doesn't look like him.
Well, again, remember, the photo or a sketch is not a photograph. It's a sketch based on human recollection. So I was convinced that eventually we were going to put those together and we were going to be able to take them apart, and there's going to be the individual. So, you know, we're human beings. We're expected to be superhuman. We're not. And we do the best we can every single day. And that's what we'll continue to do.
When someone says, I think Superintendent Carter just loves to see himself on television, what's your response?
Oh, that's crazy. No, I'm aging like an old farm dog. That's not the case at all. You know, what I'm trying to do is keep community and areas around the state aware of what we're doing as much as we possibly can, because this isn't okay.
It would pivot here just a few minutes left here with Superintendent Doug Carter from the Indiana State Police. Really good seeing you at the Central Indiana Police Foundation charity last Thursday, Breakfast with a Cop, raising money for that incredible foundation. And I just wonder if you could take a few minutes to speak about what we saw there.
Okay, so he's just going to go on to talk about this foundation dinner that he was at, and they were all at with him. So we're not going to watch the rest of that. I don't see the point in that. But I thought that was a really telling interview that he did on Hammer and Nigel. And like I said, their podcast is huge in Indianapolis. It's not really a podcast. It's a live radio show. And they do. So the other thing that I thought, like I said to you guys before, we've talked about this. The day of the announcement of the arrest, which was my birthday on Halloween, Doug Carter left his home and drove to Flora first. He drove to Flora and he sat outside across the street from the house. And he looked at the house and he looked at the burnt soot and the damage and everything that you can see on the front porch. You know, everything's all boarded up. You've still got the girls' toys on the front porch. There are containers, Rubbermaid containers. I think there's 6 to 7 of them on the front porch full of stuffed animals that have been left at that scene over the last 6 years for the girls, that someone went and got containers and actually just put them there. And, you know, it's just gut-wrenching, but he made a point of doing that morning because he wants to find who's responsible for the Flora girls' murder. And he wanted to tell them that, you know, even though he was going to announce Delphi, he hadn't forgotten them. He had not forgotten them. So, it's when I'm, you know, I wear their bracelet. I wear the Flora girls bracelet right along with my Delphi wristband because I don't want to forget them. I've covered their case practically since the beginning of Delphi. I mean, once I heard about all of that, I've investigated into both cases. There is part of me that has always believed that there is some sort of a connection. And I love how people will come into my chats, or they will comment on my Reddit sub, or they will comment under my videos and say, you guys need to stop talking about Flora and Delphi together because there's absolutely no way that these cases are connected. And I just think it's absolutely hilarious. It just cracks me up. They have no way of knowing that. Absolutely no way of knowing that. And so one of the things that gets me that people aren't aware of is the fact that you've got Stephanie Thompson, who was a state trooper. She was a she administered the polygraph examinations for both Delphi and for Flora. And there are only, I can't even remember, 4 or 5 polygraphers in the state of Indiana. And she was one of them. She worked out of the Lafayette Post, and she was killed in a very suspicious fire in her home this past February with her 17-year-old daughter. Her husband is also a judge. And the fire is being investigated by the ATF. we still do not have a cause on that fire. That fire is still listed as suspicious. Everybody who has talked about it in any capacity believes that it was arson. And I'm like, we have got a lot going on in Carroll County, and we have talked about that. We have talked about it at length. In fact, if you want to see a lot of information on the fires and the unexplained deaths of female children in the Carroll County area and the surrounding 6-county area, please go look at Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. She is one of my moderators. Her name is Allie, and she has done bang up videos on all of it. So I really feel that, you know, what we can do or what we can say about what's going on in this county, who knows? But something is. We have an arsonist at work who are doing these fires and killing these female children and female women, women and their children, female children, at an astronomical rate. And Allie has done so much work to uncover it. And there's just a lot going on. And I think the more and more that we delve into it, everybody can see that. But if they aren't connected, so be it. There still needs to be an outcome for the Flora case. So yeah, getting back to what Doug had to say, I just really feel like, he gave us a lot of information. He talks, yes, about tentacles. And what can that mean? You can read all kinds of things into that. What I thought was interesting was what was I trying to say? The fact that he talks about how complicated the case is. Because I really do believe that this case is a lot more complicated than we may think it is. But I also believe that it could be just as uncomplicated in some ways. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I know Doug Carter wants to tell us his story. I know Doug Carter wants us to know what's happening. And I know he's been saying it for years. He can't wait to tell us. But it looks like Unsolved Crimes Uncovered just uploaded a new video. Delphi is just the tip of the iceberg. So yeah, guys, you need to go watch Unsolved Crimes. And I think, John, can you drop the link to Allie's channel, please, in the chat so people can go check it out, because she did just drop a new video. I just got notification of it. So anyway, I'm going to go back, and I did star some things that I wanted to bring to light. Little Daisy said, if our eyes had seen what law enforcement saw in the woods that day, I would be forever scarred. I agree with you 1,000%. No one has any idea what a crime scene will do to a person. And then to see a human body that has been murdered, it's different than seeing somebody that you love or know laying in a casket. This is completely different. And yeah, I agree with you. C Powers said 3,000 population, but 70,000 leads. Do the math. That's so amazing to have that many leads. Overwhelming, though. Can't agree with you more. Been talking about this for a while now. Even John Bonet's case didn't have this many leads. People say, oh, it's because of social media. There are so many cases out there that don't get these kind of leads, and we have social media. This case went viral. This case went international, all over the world. Doug Carter said they were getting tips in from all over the world. So, it doesn't surprise me there. But what surprises me is that they've got 70,000 tips on Delphi and probably, I would say, 500 on Flora. I mean, it's just astronomically unbalanced. That's what bothers me. Melissa says, now the case will never be solved. The Ramsey case think they dropped it. No, that is not true. I do believe that the case will be solved. They are having a cold case unit come in 2023 and start going over this or that case. I believe that will be huge. They're going to also cover and look at the evidence. They're going to retest evidence. And I think that is going to be also very huge. Knowing what we know now and the how DNA technology has changed over time, this will be huge for that case. Cricket said, I think sometimes too much publicity can be a bad thing, as weird as that sounds. Cricket, I agree with you. Only in the fact that for whatever reason, people believe that the true crime genre is entertainment, and that bothers me. It's entertainment maybe because you like to watch it and kind of figure out what happened or what's going on. That's okay. But for people to come into true crime and create and manifest content that is not fact-based, that go off on these wild tangents accusing family members and everyone under the sun that can't even be proven that they were there that day, but they just go off of a hunch, or they go off of the way somebody looks or talks or walks or whatever. That's when the publicity can really, really hurt cases. Not to mention the loved ones that are left behind. Danger Dave, people don't realize how hard it is to solve a case. Couldn't have said it better. It is very difficult. And yeah, Indiana has one of the worst solvability rates in the country. They rank 48th. We already know that. We don't have to even look at that. We can see, what it is. But again, it's not easy to solve the cases, but they do have a lot of unsolved cases in Indiana. Yeah, Jody, as a matter of fact, I live 2 hours away from Delphi, so I'm very aware. I live in rural Illinois country. So I'm very, very aware. And it's, I know what the area and the redness of that area, if you want to say it, is how they have many fundamentalist churches in that area that preach about things like this, where, they don't want to include these kinds of, quote, people. But yeah, I'm very well aware. And like I said, there are a lot of things going on. As far as Evansdale goes, I do not believe that Evansdale and Delphi are connected at all. do not believe that for 1 minute. But I do believe that Evansdale requires just as much of our coverage as anybody else. In fact, Lyric and Elizabeth so deserve justice. I feel so bad for Doug, Elizabeth's dad, and what he's gone through trying to keep their case alive and keep it in the know. And people in Iowa do, and people in our region where we live, we all do, but it's the rest of the country that doesn't. So, you know, I talk about the Evansdale case when I can. Honeybee said that she's thinking the tentacles may stretch to Flora, maybe not perpetrators, but interests. It's hard to say. It is so hard to say what and where these tentacles go. But once we find out, I think it's going to be quite interesting. Candy Lady said, 4 little black girls shaking my head. Abby and Libby deserve the press they receive. But some people get mad when you mention the Flora girls and they don't get much press. They do. I mean, again, they do. And it goes back to social situations and the stereotypes that people place upon single black females who have children and all of that. And none of that should play into this at all. These were 4 beautiful girls, sisters, who were loving life to the fullest. They were involved in dance. Their mother worked tirelessly to care for those girls and to help those girls have a good life. And everybody that knew them said they were happy and loving children. So they didn't deserve what happened to them, no matter what. Digital said, I saw an article that Stephanie's house was such a complete loss that they can't determine arson. Yeah, I hope that's not true. But I mean, I saw the photographs of the house. It is so terrible. That house was huge, enormous, beautiful. It was brick. It's really, it's just incredible how hot that fire had to be to destroy it to the degree that it was. Similar to what happened, because if you go and you look at some of the things that we know about Flora, that fire also was extremely hot. Thank you, Candy Lady. I try to address what I feel is important. And no matter who wants to silence me from talking about Flora and the fact that it doesn't get the coverage because of race, I'm the first one that's going to scream it from the rafters, because I do believe that that's the truth. That and the fact that they saw a single black woman with 4 children by herself, and they just assumed that, you know, she was probably doing, you know, under the table things or whatever, and it was all deserved. She brought it on herself, or whatever the rumors have been about Galen. And all I can say is my heart breaks for Galen and what she has had to endure. So anyway, why do people blame the family? That's weird to think Doug Carter or Jerry Holcomb would appear on national TV and CrimeCon with people they suspect murdered 2 little girls. The family is never in this. If you're talking about Delphi, they don't believe that the family did this crime. They don't believe that. For 1 second, they don't believe that. And why do the people blame the family? Because there's some sick people out there. That's about all I can say to that. There are just some sick people out there that think that they can say and do whatever they want and hide behind their keyboards, hide behind their computers, and and ruin and play with people's lives. You know, and Doug Carter said it. This isn't a community case. This is a fact case. This is, you know, so the girl's mother survived Cricket. She was downstairs sleeping, and the girls were upstairs in the home asleep. She tried to get up to them and could not because the fire was so intense. And so, yeah, she did survive. She was in intensive care and was burned and had severe burns in her lungs. She had a lot of problems, but she did survive. So yeah. So anyway, you know what, Candy? I love your cat. I have a black cat. I've always had black cats. Again, I'm born on Halloween, and you know, I'm a huge Jack Skeleton fan, so that makes sense, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to speak out against racism any chance I can, because when you don't speak out against it and you condone it, that's what you're doing. When you don't speak out against it, is you're condoning it. And I won't do it. I just won't. And it doesn't matter if it's Black women who go missing that get absolutely no coverage. You very rarely hear about their stories. They may get a blurb on the local news cycle. If they're lucky, a regional news cycle may pick them up, but you're never going to see them on the national news. It's so rare. It is just so rare. And that needs to change. The same with Indigenous women. They get no coverage either. And it is pathetic. I don't understand it. Like I said, I don't see people that way. And everybody deserves coverage. Everybody deserves people to care if they go missing. I guess that's the way it feels. You know, if I go missing, would I want someone to care? Heck yeah. And the people who believe that they're superior to others because of the color of their skin, those people are the ones who want to say that racism doesn't exist and that it's not real. And everybody knows in your heart of hearts it does. I grew up with it. I grew up in the 60s. I grew up with it. And it is no better today than it was then. We've learned nothing, in my opinion. And people who claim to be Christians and that they believe in Jesus Christ and that he's their savior, but yet they go to Sunday school and church on Sunday and they listen to the word of God and then in turn sputter and complain about other races and talk about them in a disparaging manner. Those people are not Christian. So we have a long way to go as a society. It's and I understand what you're saying, Love Tina. I do. I understand it, but you have to see color, because by pretending that you don't see color, that's being racist. Because you have to be able to look at what they've gone through as a group. What these especially I'm going to Black women. There's just so many differences out there about how society stereotypes and treats people. And so they all deserve coverage and someone to care about their case and to put them, at the forefront. There are so many missing in this country right now that if the news cycle was to cover them all, we wouldn't have any other news. All we would be hearing about are missing people and missing children. And if we start talking about the murdered and the unsolved murders, you don't even want to go there. And most people are not going to want to listen to that. Most people don't want to even hear that. They turn it off. You start talking about an abused 7-year-old boy in Texas who was found inside of a washing machine, and you're eating dinner and you can turn that off. We don't need to hear that. It's terrible. And it does, because there's just so much of it. It's like, I think that it's like growing up like I did in the 60s, when all we saw on television was the Vietnam War. And we used to call it the war of dinner time, because when we would sit down to eat, if you turned on the news to listen or watch the news while you were having your family dinner, all we were watching was pictures and stories about the Vietnam War. It's very possible, Shelley. You know me, I'm not dying on a hill. So it's very, very possible. And if it is, I hope it breaks everything wide open and we get some closure for these families. I just do. It's just sad. And as I continue to cover cases and I continue to bring light to some of these missing and some of the crimes that have gone unsolved for so long, my hope is that I just, by bringing light and understanding to their case, that it helps. Because the more people that watch and learn, sometimes you realize the impact that you may be making. And that has always been my desire, is to hang on a second, guys. I just have to answer a question. Just give me a minute. I just want to make an impact. I just want to make a difference. Yes, Lisa, Monday is the anniversary of Flora, November 21st, 2016. And so, I just, my heart breaks for Galen. She was so scarred by what happened to her babies and how the community treated her. She had to leave. She was forced to move away. She couldn't live there knowing what people thought of her, and she needed to be with her family for the support. And I don't blame her for that for 1 minute, because I did the same thing when I lost my son to cancer. in Colorado. You know, he's buried there, and I had to come back to Illinois. We did as a family. We had to come back. We couldn't stay out there. I needed to be with my family and my close friends. And it's really hard to survive that loss without that village to help hold you up. So I don't blame Galen at all. And the people that, you know, covering Flora and covering Delphi is so interesting because it's a complete different mindset. If you go out and start searching for Delphi on the YouTube channels, you're going to find the channels that talk about the family members and how they treated Kelsey the last 5.5 years is so disgusting. It's I wonder what these people are going to do when this is all closed and over and Kelsey is living her life and in a beautiful way. And are they still going to say that she was responsible for her sister's death? Stuff like that. Thank you, Kimberly M. Thank you so very much. I certainly appreciate you. It's I agree with you, Michelle. I don't know either. It was hard for me to survive one. I can't imagine trying to survive all four. I just can't. You know, and then you get the people that tell you, well, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Wow. I mean, it's too much. Well, you guys, I had a good night with you. I hope that talking about what Doug Carter said will bring us up to Tuesday, when I know we're all absolutely waiting to see what's going to happen in the court case. And I do believe, in my heart of hearts, I do believe that they are going to unseal the probable cause. I think we're going to learn a lot when that happens, a lot more than we know now. And I'm still sure there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions, but we're going to have to be patient. And as Steve from True Crime Web and Perry with Cop Faxx always tells us, we have to trust the process. We have to trust law enforcement. We have to give it up to them and trust them. They know better than we do. The prosecutors know what they're doing. And they have enough reason to absolutely believe that Richard Allen did this crime. They would never have brought these charges if they didn't believe they had their guy. And so I think that it's going to be really interesting. I will go live after that happens in the morning. I don't know how soon after. I will give it a little bit just to see what information we get, because I don't think it's going to be uploaded to my case right away. But I do believe that if it's unsealed, the press will get it first, and I'll wait for them to come out with it. But it's a good day. Today is the day. We were finally able to say that for Becky. Today is the day. And I'm just going to hold on to the rest of it. And like the rest of you guys, be watching right along, and I'll cover it the best I can with what we know as fact. As you guys know, my channel is fact-based. I don't like to go off on tangents with a lot of speculation, rumor, unless we talk about that. So, but anyway, guys, I'm going to get off of here. I want to thank everyone for spending your evening with me. I do want to thank Jennifer and Michelle for 7 months of membership. I so appreciate all of you who are members of my channel, and who feel that paying me to do this is worthwhile. I appreciate you. For all my subscribers, I appreciate each and every one of you who come and listen to me on a regular basis. I appreciate that so much. Please hit the like button and the subscribe button for me. That helps to keep my videos up into the algorithm for YouTube, so more people get to see my information. Candace, thank you so much for your super sticker. So kind of you. I appreciate you so much. Deb, thank you so much for being here. I so am glad you are part of the Doors. So happy to have you here. And thank you. And oh, Shelly, it's so good to see you. I'm so happy you were here. You're always wonderful. For those who don't know, Shelly is a moderator for me on YouTube, on Reddit. So on Delphi's Daughters. So she and I go back. And we've talked about this case so much. And I love her to death. She's amazing. Amazing. She knows a lot about this case. But anyway, I love you guys. Paris, thank you so much. You guys all have a good night. I will see you all on Saturday evening. And I look forward to another live with you. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone. And always remember, it doesn't take anything to be kind. Be kind to everyone. Good night, everybody.